Next question. Is it okay if extreme ownership sometimes feels inauthentic? Example, taking ownership of something not really your responsibility. When does extreme ownership become excessive self-blaming?
Okay, so again, this was 2 questions. There was multiple questions like this on the interwebs. If extreme ownership feels inauthentic, or if you're taking ownership of something that's not really your responsibility. So yes, there is a chance that you're going too far. However, the chances is that there really is something that you can do about it. And too often people say, well, it's just something I couldn't control. For example, right? There's things that you have zero control over, right? And you could easily just say, hey, I couldn't control that, and therefore I can't take ownership of it. For instance, if we were planning an operation and the weather went bad, and so now our vehicles got stuck. So we could say, hey, weather got bad. There's nothing I could do about it. And that's, people say, well, yeah, you can't control the weather. No human being can control the weather. Well, guess what? You could make that excuse and be okay with it. Guess what else you could do? Hey, I didn't have a good contingency plan for bad weather, for rain. We should have brought tow ropes with us. We should have brought a winch with us so we could get out. That's what I should have done. So yes, even though it's really easy and it's like a 90% to just say, hey, it was bad weather, nothing I could do about it, you could do something about it. And that's when you start making those excuses, they're going to hurt you. Same thing in the business world, right? Oh, well, the market, I can't control the market, right? The market went down. We weren't expecting it to go down. And now, there's nothing we could do about it. It wasn't my fault. Oh, really? Because what you could have done was diversify your income streams, right? You could have diversified your income streams so you weren't relying 100% on this one segment of the market, and now you're suffering. But all you do is say, well, not my fault. We can't control the market. The market went down. Well, actually, you can control your position. Right. You control how you were set up strategically. You didn't do that. So when you do those things, it's generally, there is something you could have done about it. There's generally something you could have done about it. And so if it feels inauthentic, sure, question yourself, but then say, okay, what could I have done about this? And I would say this, even when you're with your troops and you say, look, I didn't have full control of the market. I should have done this a little bit better. We should have planned to diversify our income streams better. I didn't do that. Here's where we're at. Here's where we're going to move forward. The guys aren't going to say, like, hang you out to dry, right, because you took ownership of that thing. They're going to realize, look, Jocko's taking ownership of that. That's cool. We did get shafted by the market, and oh well, lesson learned. We're going to move forward. But when you just come in and say, hey, market went down, not my fault, you lose respect to your guys. So don't do that. Now, all that being said, are there situations where extreme ownership actually does become excessive self-blaming? And the answer is yes, because there are certain situations where there actually is nothing that you could do. So, for example, and this is a great example, speaking of lessons learned from the book Company Commander that we just went over on the podcast, Captain McDonald, they got assaulted by like basically the entire German army. And they were left to try and hold the line with pistols and rifles against Tiger tanks, right? And 88 millimeter guns and thousands of troops attacking them. He could not have stopped them. Like you cannot stop a division of soldiers with a company of soldiers. You can't do it, especially when they have artillery and they have tanks and you don't have any tank support. It's an unwinnable situation. So for him to continually blame himself and say, I should have planned better, could he say that? Sure. He did what he did with the information that he knew at the time. If he would have known it was a division attack, they would have set up differently. He thought he was just setting up a typical defensive perimeter, right? So can you get to a point where you're blaming yourself excessively? Yes, you can. And you do need to be somewhat cognizant of that. I'm going to tell you those cases are extremely rare. Extremely rare. Most of the time, you have a lot more control over your own destiny than you think you do. And the worst thing you can do is continually say, you know what, this is one of those rare instances where I had no control. It's probably not. It's probably an instance where you did have control. So keep it in the back of your mind, but keep in the front of your mind ownership.
Yeah. Seems like excessive self-blaming. That sounds like, maybe someone who's fully blaming themselves and then like instead of taking action to, implement corrective measures, something like this, they're like, I suck, and maybe they go into a depression or something like this.
Or
where they're gun shy now.
Yeah, what you're getting, absolutely. They dwell on it.
Yeah.
Right? They dwell on the mistake. They dwell on the fact that things didn't go their way. They dwell on the fact that it's their fault. And now they're, like you said, gun shy. That's great. Indecisive. People get indecisive. So those are great points. You definitely don't want to do that excessive ownership where it gets to a point where it turns you into an indecisive person that's not going to make decisions because you're scared you're going to fail. You don't trust yourself anymore. Yeah, that's a great point. That is excessive. What you need to do is say, okay, this was the problem. This was my fault. Here's what I'm going to do to fix it. I'm going to move on. Yeah. We can't dwell on the stuff that happened in the past. Can't do it. Good point.
That, how how earlier, how you kind of started this where if you, let's say, okay, the opposite. Let's say you're a blamer, right? You're like, something goes wrong and you blame someone. If someone's blaming me for something, for everything, all the time, of course, the defense comes up and all this stuff. That always happens. But after a while, they build that rep as being a blamer,
Oh, for sure.
So now just it starts to become automatic that you're defensive against this guy. You don't trust him, all this stuff. But the same kind of goes opposite. If someone's always taking responsibility for the whole deal, they're not blaming you at all. They're like, no, it's my fault. No, it's my fault. They're correcting it. You have a bunch of stories like this where guys are like, no, it's my fault. No, it's my fault. And they all want to jump in, And so the point there is like after a while, you build that rep where it's automatic. People will automatically not have any kind of defense or whatever. They automatically want to solve problems.
Yeah, that's true too.
That rep, man. Building trust is how you put it.
It is building trust. It is indeed.
Interesting.